This early morning, let us savor an extract from Yong-jia Xuan-jue's Song of Enlightenment, and then meditate. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This is the Lama you are looking for. Meditate Like a Jedi is brought to you by the kind folks who help support this channel on Patreon. This early morning we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Yoda on Dagobah under the guidance of Qui-Gon Jinn, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Good news! If at any point during this early morning's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, simply type that question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Let's chant. The Dharma body of all the Buddhas has entered into my own nature, and my nature becomes one with the Tathagata. Tathagata literally meaning thus come one, figuratively meaning just another synonym for Buddha. One level completely contains all levels. It is not matter, mind, or activity. In an instant 80,000 teachings are fulfilled. In a twinkling the evil of aeons is destroyed. All categories or no category. What relation have these to my insight? Well, this sounds vaguely positive, but also opaque. I'll do my best to shed some light on this. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to have to tap button 5 and help review with you what is meant by the philosophical perspective of yang and yin. Yang and yin mean different things in different contexts. They mean different things medically than they do philosophically. The essence of Taoist philosophy could be the 81 chapter, Lao Tzu's 81 poems that we know collectively as the Tao Te Ching. The majority of people have been taught and embrace the idea of patriarchy or yang. They're taught to be rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, competitive, and cruel. The minority of the people really take to heart the path of true matriarchy. False matriarchy is just patriarchy without a penis. True matriarchy is something much better. And forgive me if it sounds like I'm making a no true Scotsman argument. That's not my intention. But true matriarchy, true yin, is being flexible, loving, laid-back, egalitarian, cooperative, and kind. So let us contrast being flexible and laid-back with being rigid and controlling. And this, of course, brings me to one of my favorite quotes, a quip that has been attributed to Albert Einstein. Any educated idiot can make things more complicated, more difficult, and more violent. It takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite way. Listen to people talk who are stuck in rigidity and controlling tendencies. They're talking about the arduousness of the path of enlightenment. They create all these different scales of what must be realized and what must be purified in order to become a Buddha. But remember, when we read the final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, we read that full enlightenment can be accomplished in 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. A 7-day enlightenment does not sound like someone working hard for over the course of 3 great aeons. It sounds like a simple path. There's always going to be people who will pee on your parade, to tell you that things are difficult, and they'll work up all these pseudo-intellectual reasons why they're difficult. But the greatest luminaries, regardless of gender or culture of origin or language in which they speak, people who have never met, in a phenomena that would tantalize, or that is reminiscent of Carl Gustav Jung's collective unconscious. These great luminaries all talk about an easy, simple path that effortlessly creates the exact same goal as the one that is reported to be difficult and lengthy. Now you might say, well, these are just a bunch of lazy bastards who are contradicting the words of the Buddha. And perhaps you're right if it wasn't for the fact that one of the longest Buddhist sutras, the Avatamsaka Sutra, also known as the Flower Adornment Sutra, contains the same sentiment in the chapter on Samantabhadra's vows. So that's pretty cool. Armed with that context, let's skedaddle back to this morning's passage. Dharma body, a literal a translation of Dharma body, a figurative translation of the Dharma body would be the mastery of awareness and letting go. The author is saying this mastery has entered his own nature. Now, literal-minded people get very, very mystical here and magical here, but I'm not interested in that. So the basic tenet, the basic assertion of this passage is that mastery of the Buddha's path is possible. The essential practice of noticing and releasing in harmony with our inhalation and exhalation is an umbrella term containing all the other teachings of the Buddha. In science, we discuss the folly of reductionism, the folly of saying that something is only the sum of its parts and nothing more. But that theory is not backed up by the results. For instance, imagine, if you will, 2 puppies. One is wagging its tail and licking your face, and the other has been run through a meat grinder. Now, all their fluids are there, all their minerals are there, all their chemicals are there, but there's something different. I don't know of one healthy child that wants to play with a puppy that's been run through a meat grinder. So a puppy is more than the sum of its parts. It is the sum of the cooperation of its parts. So similarly, some people want to divide Buddhism down to, it's just philosophy, or it's just rules, or it's just meditation, or it's just stuff for your body, or it's just stuff for your breath, or it's just stuff for your mind. But nothing works that way. We can think of things that way temporarily to get a good overview, but practically everything is cooperating. Our body is cooperating with our breath, which is cooperating with our mind, which is cooperating with our body. In an instant, 80,000 teachings are fulfilled. In a twinkling, the evil of aeons is destroyed. Now, this idea of instant liberation is not unique to Buddhism. The great luminaries of many spiritual systems, including the authors of the Christian New Testament, play with this idea. Being made perfect in an instant. So once again, this is an end run around the trap of rigidity, of rigid tendencies and controlling tendencies that delight in increasing the complication, difficulty, and violence inherent in any task. All categories or no category. What relation of these to my insight? So there is a difference between cleverness and wisdom. Many people who seek the yang or patriarchal or fundamentalist scholarly approach spend all their time analyzing and dissecting and memorizing terminologies and lists. But that has nothing to do with mastering the Buddha's path. Remember, the fourth enlightenment factor is joy. Buddha's path is supposed to be an easy delight, regardless of the ravings of fools. This brings us to the latest iteration of the practice text titled Green Heroine's Easy Tantra. Green heroine referring not to the illicit substance, but to the archetype. We'll get more into that in just a few minutes. We're going to begin by training the neural pathways responsible for enthusiasm and empathy with the following 4-line recitation. If you've just joined me, welcome aboard. Good morning. Good news. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, the moment you have a question about that, type it in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, let's chant. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Now, below these 4 lines, or quatrain, we see a photograph of a statue of the Buddha, quite lovely, and we see a diagram illustrating what I like to describe as geriatric step-back squat thrusts. Many people prostrate superstitiously before an image of the Buddha while mumbling prayers, hoping it will somehow magically make their lives better. Personally, I like blending geriatric step-back squat thrusts with this recitation because, number one, it's a physical tonic. It feels good. It's invigorating. And number two, it helps to train the heart and mind in love and enthusiasm, which really enrich life. I'm going to do 3 repetitions of this right now. You can join me if you want to, but you most certainly do not have to. So what I'm going to try to do is arrange the camera to encompass the dealio. So this is supposed to be fun. It's like recess. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Whew. Very exhilarating. When we come to the outer preliminary practices, known by many names, such as contemplation, right view, vipassana, and ngondro, let us contemplate wisdom's dance of impermanence and interdependence. What we're doing is we're bringing the 4 bases of mindfulness into the path of impermanence and interdependence. And the sequence we're going to play with is exploring the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental. We're going to play with 8 questions, 4 verbal and 4 silent. All of these questions are rhetorical. If you've just joined me this morning, welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Let's chant. What could it look like if all circumstances are lost, blissfully and impermanently melted into rainbow light that interdependently absorbed into this body or form? So it's not our job to visualize, it's not our job to believe, it's simply our job to play with these words in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation. What could it feel like if all forms of bodies blissfully and impermanently melted into rainbow light, that interdependently absorbed into this interpersonal communication or speech? What could it sound like if all interpersonal speech blissfully and impermanently melted into rainbow light, that interdependently absorbed into this mind? What could it be like if all minds blissfully and impermanently melted into rainbow light, that interdependently absorbed into a vast empty void? This brings us to this morning's first of two silent meditations. It is known by many names. This awareness and letting go's mindfulness and meditation could serve as an antidote to clinging. It is known by many names, such as Zen Chan-jhana, Great Completion Stage Tantra, Mahasanti Ati Yoga, Sutra Mahamudra, Dzogchen Treksho, and Slice Through. Despite the grandiosity of the names, the technique is ridiculously easy. Physically emulate the posture described by this photograph of a wooden statue of the Buddha. When it comes to breathing, we want our inhalation to be shorter and sharper, relatively speaking, and our exhalation to be longer and softer. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic sensory verb watch. Sometimes we will watch literally. Sometimes our watching will just be metaphoric, a synonym for perceiving. No, it's easy to get very, very uptight and say, man, I gotta watch carefully, I gotta pull up my microscope and my tweezers and my Mead composition book, take careful notes. That's completely understandable. However, it's incorrect. Every time we inhale, we are wired to automatically access our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved not to concentrate, but to notice. To notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. To notice what? To notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including what we emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. Sometimes that means we'll be noticing the external or the internal, the physical or the mental, the pleasurable or the painful, the interesting or the boring, the glorious or the grotesque. What do we do with all that stuff? During our out-breath, as we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb relaxing. Every time we exhale, we are wired to access our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to both physically relax and mentally release. That's it? That's all? That's all. Meditation is simply coordinating our intention with the factory-installed instructions of the built-in therapist that is our autonomic nervous system ensconced within our spinal cord. Let's practice. Oh yeah, by the way, you don't have to do this. I find it helpful. What I like to do is count, not numbers, but breaths. And here's what I mean. Let me hit button 4. When I was in junior high school, I learned about repetitions and sets when it comes to bodybuilding. And then later on, when I started studying Buddhism, I learned to replace the word repetition with rounds. A round is one inhalation followed by an exhalation. And we can count 16 of those rounds on our left hand. With each inhalation, we can advance our left thumb and count 1, 2, 3, 4. This is, of course, much faster. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And of course, we can count sets of 16 on our right hand. First set of 16, second set of 16, third set of 16, fourth set of 16. So this is kind of like having a built-in timer without having to have a smartphone or keeping time with incense. There are many ways to practice this exercise. The easiest 2 ways are to practice this while sitting, or walking, or making love, or lying on your back on a blanket while gazing at the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless day, preferably the morning. Although you can do it at sunrise and sunset if you so desire. There are many, many other ways. These are the ways I've found to be the easiest, and the ways that have been endorsed by the great luminaries whose writings speak to me the loudest. So here's a quick tip. The easiest way to access one's channels, winds, and drops is by accessing your five senses. The easiest way to access your bladder wheel or womb wheel or secret wheel is with the sensory verb smell. As inferred in Dzogpa Trul Rinpoche's final meditation manual. The easiest way to access the navel wheel is with the sensory verb taste. The easiest way to access the heart wheel is through the sensory verb feel. The easiest way to access the throat wheel is through the sensory verb hear. The easiest way to access the crown wheel is through the sensory verb watch. And now it's time for a bit of the old contemplation of love and letting go, which serve as antidotes to hating. These two are known by many names, such as generation, stage tantra, mantra yoga, maha yoga, tantra mahamudra, and tokal, or leap over. Let's take a moment to consider this painting. Known in Sanskrit as Shyamatara, in Tibetan as Droll Jang, and in English as Green Heroine or Green Tara. The iconography of this yadam, or archetype of enlightenment, functions merely to organize 8 figures of speech necessary for deeply transformative contemplations, therefore rendering both superstition and blind faith unnecessary. So we're going to begin by leaping over mental competition by replacing a competition with compassion. So what is the secret to transforming mindless mantra recitation into spiritually protective mantra meditation? The answer is twofold. Number one, while verbally chanting the mantra, physically relax as best you can. During the in-breath, between sets of recitations, you'll want to silently and mentally recite either A, a wisdom-inducing rhetorical question, or B, a love-inducing intention. Now, this love-inducing intention is cryptic. Fortunately, it is fleshed out in the previous page. Let's chant here. May all minds of all beings now be as wise and peaceful as the mind of a Buddha of lore symbolized by a one-syllable CT clay or Bija mantra. So this is important. This is not saying there's a Buddha, you have to believe in them, you have to feel devotion, and you have to visualize it perfectly. It's not saying any of that. It's saying if there's a Buddha, real or imagined, this aspect of the iconography could remind us of wisdom and peace. Why play with iconography? Because all vertebrate life forms on this planet have evolved to think symbolically. Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha 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 Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha. Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha. Now let's play with the silent version. Inhalation, and remember, as long as we blend these words with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation, we will make progress on the path. May all relationships of all beings now be as loving and joyful as a real or imagined Buddha's communication symbolized by this insertable mantra. Om Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha. 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 May all bodies of all beings know and show the beautiful health depicted in Buddhist art of the blissful body of a yidam of lower and archetype of enlightenment. Om Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha. 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 May all circumstances, all lots of all beings now have their safety, good fortune, all boon, as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise, pure land or Vati. Om Tarit Tarit Ture Swaha. 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 Om Tadit Tadit Uri Swaha. Om Tadit Tadit Uri Swaha. Oh, excuse me. Now we switch gears from love to letting go. But first we're going to review the meaning of emptiness. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as no graspable as a vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a beautiful cloudless morn, which although compelling to the eye, is not graspable to the hand. So now we deal with first visions leap over circumstantial clinging. And now we begin with another bunch of 8 rhetorical questions. 4 verbal and 4 silent. How is it that as we inhale all circumstances, our lots could appear quite vivid, yet as we relax into our exhalation, they could feel as not graspable as a real or imagined paradise or vati of light? Think of one of the compositions of Maxfield Parrish. Om Tadit Tadit Uri Swaha. 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 Whew. We come to the second visions, leap over physical clinging. How is it that as we inhale, all bodies or forms could feel quite sensual, yet as we relax into our exhalation, they could feel as not graspable as a real or imagined archetypal of light? Om Tadit Tadit Uri Swaha. 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 Om Tadit Tadit Ture 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 Swaha. We come to the third vision's leap over interpersonal clinging. How is it that as we inhale the interpersonal experience of communication or speech could be quite resounding, yet as we relax into our exhalation it could feel as non-graspable as a real or imagined mantra of light? Om Tarit Tari Dure Swaha. 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 We come to the fourth and final visions. Leap over mental clinging. How is it that as we inhale we can perceive our mind's functions quite clearly, yet as we relax into our exhalation they could feel as non-graspable as a real or imagined seed-settable dome of light? Om Tarit Tari Ture Swaha. 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 We come to the second and final set of silent meditations. This bliss in letting go could serve as an antidote to craving and is known by many names, such as completion stage tantra, anu yoga, bindu mahamudra, and tikle or drop. Consider the iconography of this statue. Their nudity reminds us of the vulnerability necessary for mindfulness. Their translucence or implied translucence reminds us of the emptiness that we viscerally experience every time we relax into our exhalation. Their beauty reminds us of love that is a fringe benefit of the mindfulness and meditation correlated with their in-breaths and out-breaths. The stability with which he sits, the stability with which the chondro sits reminds us of centeredness. And the abandon with which the yidam sports reminds us of spontaneity. So we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the sensory verb feel. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable mantra relaxing. having sat for the better part of 90 minutes, I think it can be refreshing to blend this recitation of love and enthusiasm with geriatric step-back squat thrusts. This is not mandatory. It's just kind of fun, and you're welcome to practice with me if you wish, but no one's twisting your arm. Arm twisting costs extra. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying upon the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying upon the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I rely upon the Buddhas? Oopsie. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying upon the Buddhas example, instructions, and students. Let us seal our practice with 5 well wishes. May all my speech forms and thoughts be as peaceful, joyful, healthy, and fortunate as green heroines, real or imagined, suitable mantra archetype in paradise. May all beings like green heroine master the Eightfold Path as well as liberate others. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. At the very end of each being's life, may we take immediate and auspicious rebirth, master the Buddha's path, and then help all others do likewise. May everyone be free from suffering. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even share it with a friend, or perhaps even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 2 hours, I very much intend to return and lead today's mid-morning meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.